Millionaire denied pregnant wife. Claimed not my baby. What she revealed at his second wedding shocked everyone. Hey, beautiful people, welcome back, and a special warm hug to our new viewers joining for the first time. Whether you've been riding with us from day one or just discovered this channel, you are truly appreciated. Get cozy because today's story will grip your heart, stir your soul, and leave you thinking long after it ends. Whatever you do, don't skip a single second. Trust me, if you do, you'll miss the golden moments of romance, passion, and healing that make this story unforgettable. Before we dive in, let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? And what time is it over there right now? I love seeing how far this story is traveling. Jason Blake was the kind of man whose presence filled a room. Before he even spoke, confident, wealthy, always in control, yet beneath the tailored suits and boardroom, bravado was a quiet restlessness, a space in his soul that success had never managed to fill. That space began to feel less hollow the day Zelaya Monroe walked into his office. She wasn't just beautiful, though she certainly was. With her flawless skin, those soulful brown eyes that held stories unspoken, and the intricate braids that crowned her head like royalty. She carried herself with a blend of quiet power and unforced grace. When she spoke, people listened, not just to her words, but to the dignity behind them. Jason noticed everything. The way she tucked her pen behind her ear when thinking, the subtle smile she gave when she solved problems others had given up on, the gentle, melodic tone of her voice that could calm the chaos of even his most stressful days. Each morning, Zelaya greeted him with more than just routine professionalism. There was warmth in her voice, an ease that melted away the weight of his demanding world. The first time she handed him coffee with a handwritten quote on the napkin, "Even the stars are born in darkness." He looked up from his paperwork, stunned not by the gesture, but by how seen he suddenly felt. She had this way of noticing what others ignored. She learned his habits, his silences, his sighs, and he learned hers. At first, their connection was unspoken, wrapped in the comfort of shared glances across long conference tables or the subtle brush of hands when passing documents. Over time, something unnameable bloomed between them. Lunch breaks turned into soul-deep conversations about music, childhood, ambition, and pain. He told her about the nights he couldn't sleep after his mother passed, how being rich only made him lonelier. She told him about her late father, who always called her his sunshine storm, and how she learned to never lower her light to fit into dim rooms. They became a rhythm. After long meetings, she'd leave a mint on his desk because she knew he liked the coolness on his tongue. He, in turn, would leave her sticky notes with song lyrics he thought she'd like. It was innocent but intensely real. One night a storm hit the city, and Jason offered to drive her home. They sat in the parked car for nearly an hour, just talking, the rain tapping like fingers on the windshield. When she laughed, he found himself laughing too, not because of the joke, but because her joy was contagious. As she stepped out, she turned back and said softly, "Thank you for being someone I can talk to." Jason didn't sleep that night. He replayed her words, the way her hand brushed his shoulder, the softness in her gaze. He realized he didn't just admire her, he needed her presence, the way lungs need air. At the office, he began noticing her even more, how she always wore navy blue on Mondays, how her favorite tea was chamomile with a drop of honey, how she hummed quietly when writing reports. It wasn't obsession, it was reverence. He respected her boundaries, never overstepped. But every day he longed to close the distance. When she laughed at his dry jokes, it lit something inside him. Their late-night work sessions turned into rituals of quiet. Companionship, he'd order food without asking because he knew her order by heart. And she'd drape a sweater over his chair when he looked tired. Once during a stressful week, she walked in and said, "You don't always have to be strong. Let someone else carry the weight for once." That stayed with him. He began to open up, slowly letting her into corners of his life no one else saw. She met his dog, Duke, during a virtual meeting, and after that, she always asked how he was doing. "He misses you," Jason would say, half joking, half true. When she shared her poetry, he listened like it was scripture. There was a moment, one late evening, as they stood by the office window watching the city lights blink like stars, when their hands brushed, and neither pulled away. Zelaya looked up at him, eyes full of questions. He didn't answer with words, just with the silence that meant everything. That moment passed, but something had shifted. Jason began scheduling his day around when she'd be around, lingering near her desk under the guise of business. She too began to soften toward him, her voice warmer, her eyes lingering just a little longer. One afternoon, she brought him soup when she heard he skipped lunch. He looked at her, really looked, and said, "You're the only part of my day that doesn't feel like work." Zelaya smiled and replied, "That's because I'm not here just to work. I'm here because I care." He felt that deeply. More than any deal, more than any dollar, her presence began to define his peace. And though no declarations had been made, both of them knew they were already falling quietly, beautifully, into something neither of them had planned, but both had begun to crave. As days melted into weeks and weeks into months, the invisible thread connecting Jason and Zelaya grew stronger, woven through moments both small and significant, crafting a bond that neither dared to name aloud, but both felt in the core of their beings. Jason found himself inventing reasons to linger near her workspace, casually brushing past her desk with a book he knew she wanted to read, or asking for her opinion on matters far beyond the professional, simply to hear the warmth in her voice. He cherished the way her eyes sparkled when she was passionate, the way she would bite her lip in concentration, and the soft laughter that spilled from her lips when he teased her just enough to see her guard fall. But Zelaya, ever proud and self-protective, kept her heart veiled behind carefully constructed walls. She had endured enough to know that love from a man like Jason, famous, powerful, and endlessly pursued, could be fleeting, a story written for the tabloids rather than for the quiet sanctuary she craved. She wasn't ready to be anyone's trophy or a fleeting romance. She wanted to be seen and loved wholly, not just a beautiful footnote in a billionaire's life. Yet the way Jason looked at her, not with hunger or possessiveness, but with a deep, steady admiration, stirred something long buried inside her. On an evening when the city was cloaked in rain and the world seemed to slow, they found themselves sheltering beneath the awning of their office building, the cold droplets drumming a steady rhythm on the metal above them. Jason's hand brushed against hers, a simple touch but electric, tender. Without hesitation, he took her hand in his voice dropping to a whisper meant only for her ears. "I don't care what the world sees," he confessed, his gaze unwavering. "I care about you, every version of you, the quiet, the fierce, the kind, the broken." Zalaya's heart hammered against her ribs as she met his earnest eyes, a fragile smile curving her lips. "Then see me clearly, Jason," she breathed. "Not as your secretary, but as a woman worth loving with your whole heart." In that moment, the world around them ceased to exist. The pounding rain, the distant city noises, even the caution they both carried. Their lips met beneath the sheltering rain, soft and hesitant at first, then deepening into a promise neither of them dared to voice just yet. That kiss was more than passion. It was a vow of vulnerability, a surrender of walls built to keep pain at bay. It was the birth of a love neither had expected, but both had silently hoped for. From that night on, their relationship danced on the edge of friendship and something far deeper. They found comfort in the quiet moments, the stolen glances, the unspoken words that held more meaning than any grand declaration. Jason was careful not to rush, knowing Zalaya's heart was a delicate bloom that needed time and tenderness to fully open. He learned her favorite songs, played them softly in his car during drives home, and brought her lunch just the way she liked it, spicy with a dash of unexpected sweetness. Zelaya, in turn, began to let her guard down, sharing fragments of her past, her dreams and even her fears. She trusted him with the parts of herself she'd kept hidden from the world, the scars beneath her smiles and the fierce hope that still burned bright. Their conversations grew longer, filled with laughter and sometimes silence that was more comfortable than words. They celebrated victories, no matter how small, and offered solace in moments of doubt. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Jason invited Zelaya to walk with him through a quiet park near their office. The air was cool and fragrant with the scent of blooming jasmine. They talked about everything and nothing, childhood memories, favorite books, hopes for the future. Jason stopped and looked at her, eyes glistening with sincerity. "I don't want to be just your boss anymore," he said softly. "I want to be the one who stands by you, who knows every piece of you and loves it all." Zalaya's breath caught, the vulnerability in his words reaching deep into her soul. "Then don't ask me to change for you," she whispered. "Love me as I am, with all my strength and my scars." Jason reached out, tucking a stray braid behind her ear, his fingers lingering as if memorizing the shape of her face. "I don't want to change you," he promised. "I want to grow with you." Their hands found each other again, fingers intertwining like roots seeking stability. That night, as they parted beneath the glow of streetlights, there was a new tenderness in their farewell, a silent acknowledgement that the boundaries of friendship had dissolved, replaced by the fragile beginnings of love. In the days that followed, they moved carefully, savoring each moment, each touch, each smile that spoke volumes. Jason wrote poems in his mind, inspired by the way Zalaya's eyes lit up when she was passionate. Zelaya found herself humming melodies she hadn't known she remembered, a soundtrack to the feelings blossoming inside her. Their connection was a dance of respect and longing, of patience and courage, with each step bringing them closer to a love that felt inevitable, yet breathtakingly new. And though neither could predict what lay ahead in those stolen moments, beneath the quiet hum of city life and the steady rhythm of their hearts, they knew they had found something rare, something worth holding on to, no matter the risks. A year had passed since that rain-soaked confession beneath the awning, and the world around Jason and Zelaya had changed in ways neither had dared to dream. Now standing beneath a canopy of cherry blossoms that bloomed like soft pink clouds above them, they vowed their lives to each other with a quiet ceremony. That was less about grandeur and more about the raw, unshakable love they had built. The air was sweet with the scent of flowers and the tender whispers of friends who had watched their journey unfold. Friends who had seen the way. Jason's gaze never wavered from Zelaya, how every glance was filled with reverence and devotion. Zelaya, radiant in her satin gown that shimmered like liquid moonlight, wore pearls delicately woven through her braids, each strand telling a story of resilience, beauty, and grace. As she walked toward him, every step was a heartbeat, every breath a prayer, and Jason looked at her not as the powerful man who commanded boardrooms, but as a man utterly captivated by the woman who had become his everything. The world fell away, and in that moment, it was only them, two souls intertwined, promising to face all of life's uncertainties hand in hand. Their vows were whispered but no less profound, promises to cherish, to protect, and to nurture a love that was as fierce as it was tender. The day was filled with laughter that echoed beneath the blossoms, the soft rustle of silk and the warm embrace of shared dreams. Their marriage was not marked by ostentation but by a deep sense of peace and belonging. Evenings were often spent curled up with books, the pages turning quietly, while their hands found each other's in the dim light of their shared sanctuary. Mornings brought the ritual of coffee, black for him, sweetened with cream and a dash of cinnamon for her, and the comfort of knowing that no matter what storms might come, they had this steady foundation. Around the dinner table, Jason would reach across to squeeze her hand, a silent language of love that spoke louder than words. Sometimes, when the world felt too heavy, he would lean in to whisper affirmations in her ear, reminding her she was enough. She was loved beyond measure. Zelaya cherished these moments, each one a thread weaving their hearts closer. One quiet night, as the city lights twinkled through their window like distant stars, she rested her head on his chest and murmured, "I never imagined love could feel like this, so real, so grounding." Jason's lips brushed her forehead with a tenderness that made her believe in forever. "It's real because it's you," he replied, voice steady, filled with conviction. Together, they built a life rich not just in comfort or wealth, but in understanding and respect. Challenges arose, as they do in every marriage, but their love was a refuge, a place where flaws were accepted and strength celebrated. They learned the delicate dance of give and take, of patience and forgiveness. In moments of quiet vulnerability, Jason would share his fears, the pressure to always be strong, the loneliness success often brought, while Zelaya, with her unwavering faith and fierce spirit, became his anchor. And she, too, revealed her dreams of building something lasting, of carving out a space where her voice mattered beyond the walls of the office. Their bond was a living thing, growing stronger with every shared sunrise and whispered secret. Jason found joy in the small things, the way Zalaya's laughter could brighten the darkest days, how her touch could calm the restless beat of his heart. Zelaya felt cherished in ways she had only read about in stories, her spirit nourished by a love that demanded nothing but gave everything. They celebrated milestones quietly but meaningfully, a promotion, a birthday, the first home they bought together, each a testament to their journey. Nights often ended with music playing softly in the background, bodies close, hearts even closer, wrapped in the comfort of belonging. They dreamed aloud about the future, about adventures and the possibility of expanding their family. Jason's eyes would light up at the thought of building a life with her, not just as a husband and wife, but as partners in every sense of the word. Zelaya, with all her strength and grace, found in Jason not just a lover but a confidant and a friend. Their love was not perfect, but it was theirs, honest, fierce, and deeply rooted in respect. And in those quiet moments, when the world outside ceased to exist, they knew they had found something rare and beautiful, an unbreakable bond that no storm could shatter. As the weeks turned into seasons and their love matured with quiet strength, Jason and Zelaya found themselves seeking moments away from the noise of success and responsibility, moments to simply be, to breathe in each other's presence without the weight of the world pressing in. On their anniversary, Jason surprised her with a weekend escape to a secluded beachside resort, far from the gleam of city lights, where the only soundtrack was the rhythm of the waves and the hush of the wind through palm trees. They arrived just before dusk, the horizon painted in shades of rose and gold, the sky wrapping itself around the earth like a silk shawl. Zelaya kicked off her sandals and stepped onto the cool sand, letting it press between her toes, grounding her in a peace she hadn't felt in months. Jason followed her, quietly admiring how the evening light turned her brown skin to velvet and made the pearls in her braids shimmer like tiny constellations. Without a word, he wrapped his arms around her from behind, pulling her close until her back pressed softly against his chest. She leaned into him naturally, her fingers finding his, their bodies swaying gently as the tide whispered near their feet. "You've brought color into my black and white life," he whispered against her ear, his voice low and reverent, as though the moment itself demanded quiet awe. Zelaya turned her face slightly, brushing her lips along his cheek in response, a smile playing across her mouth. They stayed like that until the stars took over the sky, then retreated to their private suite lit by the soft flicker of candlelight, where everything seemed dipped in amber and warmth. The suite opened to a balcony that overlooked the ocean, where the sea breeze danced through white curtains like music. A vintage jazz record played from the old speaker Jason had requested, filling the air with timeless softness. Zelaya stood in the center of the room, her gown swaying with each step she took, the candlelight reflecting in her eyes. Jason approached her, offering his hand without words. She took it, and together they moved slowly, deliberately, dancing in quiet circles, as though time itself had paused for them. He ran his fingers through the ends of her braids, the gesture unhurried, as if memorizing the way they felt between his fingertips. "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," he said, his eyes locked to hers, not just tracing her features, but seeing into her, the strength she carried, the softness she guarded, the wild spirit he had fallen in love with. She rested her head against his shoulder, her heart full and quiet. "You see me," she murmured, "and that means more than anything." Their kisses that night weren't hurried or heated, but slow, reverent, like promises spoken in a language only they understood. Each touch was intentional, filled with care, a caress down her back, his thumb brushing her cheek, her hands gently tangled in the fabric of his shirt. They didn't rush toward passion, but let it unfold, shaped by the years of trust they had built. Their love that night wasn't about desire, it was about belonging, about the comfort of a safe place found in each other's arms. They whispered dreams as they lay wrapped in white sheets, speaking of children, of building something that would last beyond their names. "You feel like home," Zelaya whispered in the dark. Jason kissed her hand and said, "That's because I've been searching for you all my life." The night passed like a lullaby, filled with laughter and soft silences, with eyes that spoke and hearts that listened. And when sleep finally came, it wasn't because the day was over, but because their souls were finally at rest. The morning after their anniversary retreat, Zelaya awoke in Jason's arms, her soul content, her heart fully anchored in the man she believed would never betray her. But while love bloomed within the walls of their marriage, jealousy had begun to rot the foundation from outside. Natalie, Jason's new secretary, watched their happiness with silent resentment. She was young, striking, and intelligent, but it wasn't enough. She didn't want to assist Jason Blake. She wanted to become his wife. Behind perfectly manicured smiles and exaggerated professionalism, Natalie plotted with precision, biding her time and choosing her words like daggers dressed in silk. One late evening, as Jason reviewed contracts in his office, she leaned in just enough to invade his space, voice soft and laced with false concern. "Sir, I wasn't sure I should say anything, but I think you deserve the truth. I've seen your wife, Zelaya, meeting men, late, not once, a few times now. I thought it might be business, but people talk." Jason looked up, his pen pausing mid-signature. She didn't press further, only dropped a whisper before walking away. "I just hope the child she's carrying is really yours." That sentence echoed in his mind like a curse. It shouldn't have pierced him, it shouldn't have mattered. But it did. Pride and fear collided like a storm inside his chest. Doubt crept in through the cracks of his heart. And instead of seeking clarity from the woman who had once danced with him, beneath moonlight, Jason chose silence. He watched Zelaya closely after that, her phone calls, her smiles, the gentle way she spoke about the baby growing inside her. None of it changed, but his vision was clouded by lies he hadn't challenged. One evening, as Zelaya stood in their kitchen humming while prepping dinner, Jason walked in with cold eyes and colder words. "I knew about the meetings," he said flatly. Zelaya blinked, confused. Meetings? He didn't look at her. Don't play innocent. You've been unfaithful. The baby you carry, it isn't mine. Her world cracked instantly. She stood there, frozen, one hand protectively resting on her belly, as if shielding the child from his words. "Jason, you won't even ask me what's true," she whispered, voice breaking. "I don't need to," he said, each word a blow. "I've already decided." And just like that, he turned his back to her and walked out, taking with him the warmth, the laughter, the home they had built. That night, Zelaya sat alone in the nursery they hadn't finished painting. The soft yellow walls mocked her with their optimism. The crib Jason had assembled still stood in the corner. She curled herself around her belly on the edge of their bed, trying to hold herself together while grief tore her apart. Her tears were silent at first, then uncontainable, gut-wrenching. Sobs that echoed through the emptiness of their once loving home. "You are loved," she whispered to her unborn child through trembling lips. "Even if your father can't see it now, you are mine, and I will protect you." She pressed her lips to her belly, anchoring herself in the one truth she had left: love, her love for this innocent life. Though her heart had been shattered, though the man she trusted had left her without seeking the truth, Zelaya refused to let bitterness claim her spirit. As Jason signed the divorce papers days later without a flicker of hesitation, she stood tall in silence. She would not beg. She would not explain herself to a man who no longer saw her, but deep inside something awakened in her, a fierce determination to rise, to heal, to give her child the life they deserved. The lie had shattered everything, but it would not destroy her. 2 years passed like shadows chasing sunlight, quiet, relentless, and full of questions left unanswered. Zelaya had rebuilt herself in silence, raising her child with love and resilience, never once begging Jason to return, never once shrinking from her new reality. Her body had healed, her heart had hardened in parts, but her spirit had only grown sharper. Meanwhile, Jason had buried the truth beneath layers of pride, convincing himself he had made the right decision. Natalie's influence deepened over time, her presence beside him becoming routine, familiar, but never sacred. And then came the day of their wedding. The garden was dressed in elegance, crystal glasses clinked, champagne flowed, and rows of white roses lined the aisle beneath a stunning floral arch. Jason stood at the altar, his tailored suit crisp, his eyes distant as he waited for Natalie to appear in her designer gown. Applause scattered lightly as music began, and the crowd turned. Only it wasn't the bride who stepped through the gate. It was Zelaya. She stood at the entrance like a revelation, stronger, more radiant than any memory Jason had clung to. Her braids had grown long, cascading like a crown over her shoulders, and in her arms she held a child, his child. The boy, wide-eyed and curly-haired, nestled against her with the ease of knowing he belonged. Gasps spread through the garden, like wind through leaves. Every head turned. Zelaya didn't rush or falter. She walked down the aisle with grace, wearing a flowing ivory dress that whispered power and poise with each step. In her right hand a manila file. She stopped just short of the altar, her voice calm but heavy with truth. "This child," she said, eyes locked on Jason, "is yours." Silence shattered the ceremony. Jason's eyes widened as she extended the file. His fingers trembled as he opened it, reading the words he should have sought 2 years ago. 99% match, father, Jason Blake. The paper slipped from his hands. He dropped to his knees, overwhelmed by a weight heavier than guilt, regret. The kind that settles into your bones. "I believed a lie," he whispered, his voice cracking, "and I let my pride ruin everything." His eyes welled up, but Zelaya did not shed a tear. She stood tall, her chin lifted, the boy clutching her shoulder. "You didn't just leave me, Jason," she said, her tone steady, sharp as glass. "You left your own blood. You threw us away without even asking for the truth." Natalie, pale and stunned, stepped backward, eyes darting between them like a cornered animal. She turned quickly, heels clacking on the stone path as she fled down the aisle. No ceremony, no vows, no stolen crown. The guests sat frozen, some covering their mouths, others whispering in disbelief. But Zelaya wasn't there for a scene. She didn't beg, didn't plead. She came only to reveal the truth Jason had refused to search for. The boy looked at him with the innocent gaze of a child who didn't understand betrayal, only presence or absence. And Jason, still on his knees, could no longer bear to meet his son's eyes. As the crowd dispersed and the echoes of that interrupted wedding faded into gossip and disbelief, Jason remained still long after Zelaya had left, haunted by the innocence in his son's face and the storm he had created. Days passed in restless silence, and weeks turned into moments of soul-searching, until finally he stood once again before the woman he once called his wife. No altar, no crowd, just a front porch bathed in late afternoon light. Jason held a bouquet of wildflowers, clumsily wrapped in newspaper, trembling slightly in his hands. His designer suit replaced by humility, his polished confidence unraveled. "I don't expect this to fix anything," he said softly, voice raw. "But these are for you, because you still deserve beauty, even from me." Zelaya, standing in the doorway in jeans and a soft gray sweater, didn't move right away. She looked past him at the street, then at her son playing in the yard, laughing freely, tossing a red ball in the air as the sun warmed his curls. "He's strong," she said, not looking at Jason. "He's kind. He knows he's loved, with or without you." Jason nodded, stepping forward slowly. "And that's because of you. I was a coward. I let a whisper shatter something sacred. I didn't just doubt you. I abandoned the truth, because it was easier than facing my own insecurity." She finally met his eyes, guarded but open, tired but steady. "It wasn't just betrayal, Jason. It was erasure. You erased everything we built with a sentence. You didn't even ask me." He lowered himself to his knees, not out of desperation but reverence. "I know. And I won't beg. I want to be in his life. And if there's even a flicker of a path that leads back to you, I'll walk it. I'll crawl it, with patience, with honesty. I want to earn your trust, not expect it." Zelaya studied him. Not the man in the tabloids, not the millionaire. The man stripped of ego. For the first time, she saw him not through the lens of pain, but through the clarity of survival. Her eyes shimmered, not from brokenness, but from the strength of a woman who had pieced herself back together without permission. "I won't be the woman you left," she said. She cried herself to sleep. She questioned her worth. "That woman died the day you turned your back. But this version of me?" She exhaled. "She doesn't take promises. She accepts actions. So if you want a second chance, start there." Jason's shoulders sagged with humility. "Then I'll start with today. And tomorrow. And the next day." Their son ran toward them, wrapping his small arms around Zelaya's leg, eyes wide as he looked at the man he recognized, but didn't yet understand. Jason knelt to meet him, voice tender. "Hi, buddy. I'm your dad. If it's okay with you, I'd like to learn how to be that one day at a time." The boy nodded slowly, then reached out his hand. "A peace offering." Zelaya watched, silent, her heart full. Days turned into weeks, and Jason showed up, at preschool pickups, at doctor's appointments, at story time. Never overstepping, always asking. Zelaya didn't forgive him overnight. But each moment he showed up, the cracks began to fill. And from the ashes of betrayal, something new took root. Not just a second chance at love, but a deeper partnership born of honesty, accountability, and growth. Months later, Zelaya stood in front of a small crowd at the launch of her non-profit, Mother's Rise, a support network for women who had been abandoned, dismissed and broken, but refused to be defined by their pain. "I was left," she told the room, "but I was never empty. Because love, real love, starts with the self." Her words were met with standing applause. Jason stood in the back holding their son, proud, not of what he had regained, but of who she had become. Zelaya had risen, not in spite of the fire, but because she had walked through it and emerged radiant, powerful, and whole. And Jason, he never doubted her again.